Thank you very much, Prof, for inviting me to speak on this panel about the Eurasians, because I think not many of you really know about Eurasians. So what I'm going to do, I'm standing now at the Eurasian Heritage Gallery at our community house in Ceylon Road. After I speak a little bit about what we're doing and how I see the future of Eurasians in Singapore, I shall ask Ms. Jacqueline Peeris, who's the manager of the Heritage and Culture at the Eurasian Association, to do a quick walk around and give you a better insight on who we are, where we came from, a bit of our culture, how we contributed to Singapore. Eurasians are unfortunately not well enough publicized in my view, and that's why we have views like what I just heard from Edmund. Sorry, I've got a clipboard because I wrote some notes. Edmund Wong thought that we are not a race. In fact, we are a race. Eurasians are a race. That's why we are one of 4 self-help groups in Singapore.
Yes, you are among the others.
No, that's another thing, the misconception, because when I was president of Eurasian Association in 1991, and I can still remember at the garden party at the Istana, Goh Chok Tong, who was then Prime Minister, made an announcement that Eurasians are not others, we are Eurasians, but I don't know how it slipped and how we went back into others. So it's another, we have to get Joseph Scooting to come and help us swim and break some more records and get back up again to be recognized. Now, that aside, the Eurasians had a pretty bit of a roller coaster history in Singapore. As you know, we were a bit of a privileged lot during the time of the British. And when we had independence, many Eurasians migrated to Australia, UK, Canada. But many of us also stayed back. People like me, for example. And the community, in a way, flatlined. Down to the year 1989, I was 36 years old, and I became president of the Eurasian Association. We had a membership of about 128. Within a year, we shot up to about 1,200 members. Population of Eurasians was slightly below 10,000. Today we are 18,000. So you see, we've been quite busy. And what's more important today is that we see ourselves as getting more and more into mainstream Singapore. We want to do more to get socially involved. In fact, in our annual general meeting forthcoming on the 20th, this is the first time since 1989 that we are having a full house, 22 candidates vying for 11 positions, and 70% of them, almost, are younger Eurasians, well qualified, doing well in the various professions, and now stepping up to the plate. So we're pretty sanguine. We're looking to get ourselves up, perhaps maybe later in the year. We plan to organize a Eurasian diaspora. We have a social platform called Eurasians International with about 7,000 very active members around the world. And hopefully we will get everybody together sometime end of this year or the next year. Okay, a little bit on me. I come from background, my father, Swedish. My mom is Portuguese Goan, born in Singapore, and very much a Singaporean. Okay, now what I'd like to do is introduce you to Ms. Jacqueline Peeris, the manager of our Heritage and Culture at the Eurasian Association, to walk you through and tell you who we are. Jacqueline?
Thank you, Victor, for the opportunity to share more about the Eurasian community in Singapore. So if you just follow me, we are here in the Eurasian Heritage Gallery, as Victor mentioned. And just to generally share, the overview, the three main European ancestors of Eurasians are the Portuguese, Dutch, and British. So the Portuguese came to Malacca, the port of call back then, in 1511. They intermarried the locals, and the offspring from those unions were half European, half Asian. When the Dutch arrived in Malacca in 1641, they intermarried with these already mixed offsprings and further intermarriages, and so on when the British arrived in 1795. So when the British came to Singapore in 1819, they invited Eurasians from the region, Malacca, Penang, Goa, to come and work in the British administration. The British utilized Eurasians as intermediaries between the British and the locals because Eurasians were fortunate to have access to education, so they had a good command of English language, and being mixed, they could communicate with the locals. Many Eurasians were, if we look over here, were in the civil service, many teachers, seen as a noble profession, and many in the communication industry, Vernon Palmer, Brian Richmond, to name a few. Many Eurasians were the first locals to hold high government positions when the British left. And this was instrumental in pre and post-independence. And one example is George Olsen. He was the first Speaker of the Legislative Assembly and later knighted by the Queen, and was the first local to become Sir, to be knighted, Sir George Olsen. We also have Stanley Stewart over here, the first head of civil service. And if we just follow me to this section over here, we have some pioneers. Tommy Campbell in the Singapore Armed Forces, John Le Cain, first Chief Commissioner of Police, Timothy D'Souza was a pioneer Black Knight in the Singapore Air Force, and James Area, Commander of the Navy. So they all contributed, as Victor said, many chose to stay, and they did their part to make their mark. In this gallery 3, which is on the culture of the community, culture and lifestyle, over here you can see the dressing, you can see the influences back from the 1500s, the Eurasian Kabaya, Compridu, and all the different kabayas that we've seen all had similar influences back in Malacca in the 1500s. We move over to this section, which is on religion. This wedding gown over here, we used to make the 2 christening robes. One was made from the veil and one was made from the train to symbolize continuity in the family. So these are some of the traditions that were passed down in the generations. And of course, a good way to get to know a culture is through food. So we have a section on cuisine, and the title we chose is So Singaporean, but Unlike Any Other. And you can see the picture of the spices over here, which is the main reason why the Portuguese came, to have control of spices in Europe. And because of that, essentially, that's why we have Eurasians today. So there's curry de bao, which is of Portuguese origin. And the bao means leftovers in the Kristan language. So after Christmas, they will cook leftover meats, put it together in a super spicy curry and lots of vinegar to preserve it longer. And over time, I guess it was called the curry devil because it was very hot. And we move along to share more about some Eurasians in the arts and sports scene. Just to name a few, Jeremy Montero, who was the first jazz musician to receive the cultural medallion in 2002. Other names are Sylvia McCulley for ballet, Shada Harrison in the theatre scene, some younger ones as well. And of course, Joseph Schooling, who was the first and only Olympian to win an Olympic gold for Singapore. So in conclusion, you can see at this panel here, Eurasians all look different, with all the different European mixes, the different Asian mixes. Some will say it's like Rojak, very Singaporean. And our youth, the future of our nation, they share that they hope we can all work together to build a better Singapore, embracing new first-generation Eurasians due to intermarriage due to globalization, and while embracing and still preserving our rich treasure trove of different cultures we inherited through the years. So if you want to find out more about the Eurasian Community and the Eurasian Association in Singapore, I can share that you can download a free PDF digital copy of this book on the Eurasian Association website. This book is titled Standing the Test of Time. It's basically a record of the 100 years of the Eurasian Association since its inception in 1919 until 2019. And our resolution as we stay relevant and move forward in this century. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jacqueline and Victor. I think the the Eurasian community has really demonstrated so clearly this Serafian's idea of the mycelium network, and this is something that is very, very important for the future of Singapore, because I just want to remind everybody of Ferdinand Brodel's 2 volumes on the Mediterranean, right, where he identified the Mediterranean as the source of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment of Europe, okay? And he, in fact, in his book, mentioned that Southeast Asia is the potential Mediterranean of the new Asia, okay? And I think that that Singapore, right, might very well be the kind of mixing point, right, as all of you have demonstrated, right, that we are not just individual ethnic cultures, no, we are actually connected together, right? So this is a topic which I think I want to go in greater detail throughout the other programs that Friday Conversations will be engaging this year.